going on, guys? MedicX21 yet again with another video. So I was kind of running dry on some ideas, and so I messaged out on Discord, was like, hey guys, anybody got some ideas? And I had AFS Smokes was like, hey dude, do a video on gaming on Linux. And first when I saw the comment, I was like, no, just no, I'm not gonna do that. But right after that comment, Drinking Ninja message, hey man, play Diablo 3 with me. And I was kind of on the fence about playing some Diablo 3, but then I was like, you know what? Alright, challenge accepted. Here's a video, Diablo 3 on Linux. Alright, so the first thing that we gotta do is we have to go download Pop! OS. Now, I do show how to do this on Ubuntu, but we're gonna do Pop! OS first, and I will say that Pop! OS, this worked much better on Pop! OS than it did for me on Ubuntu. However, I think if I spent more time working on Ubuntu, I probably would have been able to figure out some of the issues, but we'll get into those later on. Once we get our ISO file downloaded, we're going to use a program called Rufus, and we're going to use Rufus to create our bootable thumb drive. So inside Rufus, we'll select the ISO. In my case, I have mine pointed to my desktop. We're just going to click Start. We're going to run through our things. It's the standard bootable USB on Rufus, just like any other OS that you've done before on it. We've covered it a couple of times, so you should be able to figure it out. Once we've got downloaded, we'll close it, we'll pop in our USB, and we will boot our computer. It gives us the option to try or install. Obviously, we're going to let it boot up, and we're going to install it. Comes in here. I'm going to select, obviously, English and US and all that for all of my stuff. Cruising on through, do our default stuff. Obviously, we're going to do a clean install. I had a fresh SSD that I'm using for this. So this is not a VM for me. This is directly on an SSD. I'm not going to encrypt my drive at all. You can if you want to. I chose not to. Once it's installed, we'll restart our system. Just going to click Next. Follow the prompts. I don't personally like to have my privacy stuff on, so I shut off the privacy settings. Obviously, I'm from the eastern part of the US. I skipped for all the cloud stuff. I typically use owner as my name, so I used owner in my standard password. Once we've got that, the system it goes black and pops right back up. Once we're inside, we're gonna open up terminal. This is the part in the new operating systems where you get the fresh download or the fresh install and do your updates. So I did the sudo update, but then also had a pop up from the Pop! OS itself that I had updates. So I went ahead and did those updates as well. So I use the systems update to run the updates, but I also still use sudo update as well. Once everything is updated, we're going to pop up our terminal. Inside the terminal, we're going to run, I still did update again just to make sure everything was updated. Once that's in there, we're going to run a few more commands. We need to basically, there's two things that we need to get installed. We need to install wine, and then we need to install lutris. So here we're installing wine, and I'll give you the whole string to type in, and you can also slow the video down and take a look at this as well too, to make sure you got everything typed in correctly. Hit yes when the thing pops up, and then I sped the video up immensely so you guys did not have to sit here and watch it. Once wine is installed, we have to open up the pop shop. Just hit your Windows key, open the pop shop, type in lutris, hit install. We'll let lutris install, and then this is actually was pretty easy to do. Once lutris is installed, go on to Firefox, go to Google, type in Diablo 3 on lutris. Just click install. It's going to find our lutris program. We're going to run the link. We'll let it run. This will pop up. Just hit install, then install again, and this is going to install Battlenet for us. So this actually isn't installing Diablo for us. This is installing Battlenet. So I'll click English for me. I'll let Battlenet install, and then once it's installed, there is a couple of things that I had to do depending on, because I did this twice. I did this on Pop! OS and I did this on Ubuntu. On Pop! OS, this just worked. On Ubuntu, I had to go into the runner options and I had to disable my DXVK, and that was associated with, I believe, the Vulkan drivers. And when I talk later on about installing this on Ubuntu, I'll explain some of the extra things that I had to do. On Pop OS, after doing all my updates and stuff at the beginning and then installing this, my Vulkan and all that, it was installed and it just worked. So I didn't have to shut off the Vulkan stuff. It just worked, and I hit play and it popped up and worked for me. So once we've got that set up, depending on your system, we'll hit play, Blizzard will pop up, you'll put in your standard login. And then obviously, just like any new game, we're going to install Diablo 3. And we'll let that run for a little bit. So I think, and I know somebody smarter than me is going to leave a comment down below, I believe that Wine and Lutris are essentially just Windows VMs or Window VM that's running, because some of the folders that would pop up, it would have the Windows stuff, Windows installer stuff in it. So I think this is just like a low latency Windows emulator VM, I'm not sure. But once we've got Diablo installed, as you can see, I just click play and it worked. Now I do want to leave this there. The choppy sound that you're hearing, this was not happening when I was playing and running this. The way that I was recording was connected through an HDMI cable into a capture card onto another computer, and I normally use a 3.5 millimeter to run my audio. The HDMI, I didn't realize that the audio was choppy. So listening to this and playing this, the audio was not choppy like this. And I just want to show you real quick some quick gameplay. We'll show you more gameplay later, but I just want to show you that it was smooth. This was, everything was turned on. The only things that I didn't have high was it was running in full screen, but not with any of like the multi-sampling or anything like that. But it ran very well. Actually, surprisingly well. It ran very well. Real quick, just to tell you the specs that I'm using, this is my server computer that I'm using. I just unplugged all of my hard drives and my SSD, and I used the spare SSD. So I'm using a 3400G. I have 16 gigs of RAM and a 240 gig SSD. So I'm running this on an APU, the most recent Ryzen APU, and it ran smooth. I mean, like, it ran really well actually. But there's some caveats we'll talk about in a little bit. So real quick, I said that I was going to tell you about Ubuntu, and I do want to tell you there's a few different things that you have to do to install this on Ubuntu. Pop OS, it was just super simple, clicking the next and you were good to go. With Ubuntu, it was a little bit different. We did have to go and manually install Wine, just like we did, but we had to use a few of these commands here. I will keep the link in the description, but I'm going to show you the webpage right now. Depending which version of Ubuntu you have, depends on the string you have to use. But as long as you followed all of this is the page that I used to install it, and it just worked. The next web page right here on lutris.net for Ubuntu. Now, Pop OS, I didn't have to do this, but on Ubuntu, I did have to do this, and it was the repository. I know I had to do it on Ubuntu. I don't recall doing it on Pop OS, but if you do this on Pop OS and you have some issues, then try doing the sudo app repository and adding the PPA lutris-team. I don't think I did it on Pop OS. I think I only did it on the Ubuntu, but I did this so many times that a lot of this is kind of mushing in my head now, so I think that's how I did it. But I want to show you everything that I used on both of them, just in case you have a hiccup somewhere. This was something else that I used on Ubuntu. And then just like on Pop OS, once we have Wine installed and we have Lutris installed, then we're going to go to Google again. We'll find the Lutris nets, the Diablo 3. And because you have Lutris installed, you have to have Wine installed for Lutris to basically find that. Again, I don't know if it's a virtual machine or emulator or what it is, but Wine's going to be what's kind of running the game, but Lutris is going to be kind of how you're pulling the, I don't know if it's pulling the files or how it's set up, but you need both together. If you download Lutris without Wine, it's going to tell you files are missing and it can't find a program to use. And when I tried doing this just with Wine, I could boot into the Blizzard screen and I could install Diablo, but I could not run Diablo. So I needed Lutris to actually be able to play Diablo. So download Wine, really just run the wine commands that I showed you. You don't even have to open it or do anything. You just run the commands that I showed you, then download Lutris. And once Lutris is downloaded and installed, you don't have to open Lutris. You just download it, and then you go into Google, you go to Diablo, and then you're going to click install. It's going to pop up with the link, and then you're going to follow all of the command prompts to install the Blizzard app on Lutris. Now, on Ubuntu, I'm showing you right now is when I set this up on my Ubuntu system, everything worked. However, once I was finally in the game was incredibly laggy, like running 5 FPS. Like it was a non-playable game. Everything was working and I could see it, but it was a non-playable FPS. I did find, after looking around a bit, I found a GitHub, and it's got the terminal commands on how to install, and I think it was the Vulkan was what I was missing. So once I ran and installed the Vulkan, and then I had Vulkan running, remember the setting I showed you earlier to shut off the DK, whatever it was? When you have Vulkan running, that can turn on. That switch will actually stay on. So if you find that you put that setting on, save it, and then you open your settings again and it's off, then your Vulkan's not installed. And you need to figure out how to get whatever video drivers you need. In my case, I was using the integrated graphics on the GPU, on the CPU, and then I needed to get on Ubuntu, I needed to actually manually download and install my Vulkan drivers. But once I did that, whatever the Vulkan, that tab was, the DX, DK, whatever it was tab, that would stay on, it would save, and then when I launched the game, it actually ran, and it ran very well at very good FPS. However, there's also a catch to it. For some reason on Ubuntu, and only on Ubuntu, there was a lot of lag spikes. So it would be playing at a good FPS, but I would get stutters pretty frequently. Now, I only played this on Ubuntu for 5 or 10 minutes just to see if I could get it working. And then once it was working, I decided to just kind of leave it at that. I'm sure if I looked around more online, I could have figured out what was causing those stutters. But because I got to the point where it worked and I knew it could work, all of the fine-tuning stuff are things that you could look at later on. So if you're using an Ubuntu system and you have to use this on Ubuntu, then you may have that hiccup and the stuttering, and you may have to look into it. So if you have that same issue and you figure out the fixes for it, let me know in the comments below on what you chose to do. For me, I used Pop! OS, and I mostly all of this I did on Pop! OS. I just decided to do, when I was finishing everything up, I decided to try this on Ubuntu just to see if I could, because I know for me personally, I prefer Ubuntu. However, I know that there's that community of people that want to game on Linux, and Pop! OS seems to be catching in favor of a lot of people. It seems to be working very well for gaming, and as you can see here, it actually worked incredibly well for us for gaming because the Steam stuff is super simple. I picked Diablo 3 because it was a bit more complicated, because you had to use Lutris and Wind and do the extra stuff. So since Pop! OS, it for the most part just worked. If you're going to be gaming on Linux, you might want to choose Pop! OS. But if you're stuck with Ubuntu, then let me know what kind of things you had to do to get it going, or if you ever got it going, or if you had the same hiccups as I did. I decided to take this one step further. I'm like, what is gaming without gaming with friends? So, gotta get Discord installed. So let me show you real quick. Discord install was actually super easy. We just opened up a terminal. I have the commands here on the screen. I'll link those in the description as well. For me, when I first ran it, it downloaded my deb to my desktop, the discord.deb file to my desktop. So I initially had trouble finding it, and then I just moved my notes over and realized it was on my desktop. Once it was on there, I just LS'd into it, ran the installer, and it did give me an error when in the command, it did give me an error. However, as soon as I checked to see if it installed or if any of it installed, it was actually installed. I just hit my Windows key, there was Discord, click Discord, and it just worked. Does your standard updating when you launch it. It'll pop up with the web page for you to log into it. I logged into mine, and the first thing I did was I messaged my buddy Drinking Ninja, who was part of the inspiration for this, as well as AFS Smokes. And then I told him I was getting my headset, and I said, all right, man, let's power level me. So I want to introduce you guys to Drinking Ninja. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's how we're going to do it, I think. Yes. Say something real quick.
Hello.
Yes. Okay. There we go.
You
did you move to another floor?
Oh shit, I did. My bad.
I'm like, I don't think I'm getting any XP right now.
I was like, honestly, I completely forgot.
Yeah. So there was one problem that we found with running Diablo 3 and Discord. I wanted to turn up Drinking Ninja's audio because I was having some trouble hearing him. And the way the emulator or Wine or VM or whatever it is, the way it's working, I could not actually tab out of the game and into Discord to adjust volumes. The only way I was going to be able to do this was if I exited out of the game and then adjusted my volumes and then relaunched everything in Lutris. So I just kind of tolerated, I just turned up my headset and at one point lowered the in-game audio and stuff. But that was kind of one of the things where I was like, oh, that really sucks. I wish I could just kind of tab out of it and adjust volumes on the fly, because that can get, if you're somebody who plays with a bunch of people and you need to frequently readjust volumes as people come and go or something, that's going to get super annoying. But there might be a way to fix this or do this faster, but in my case, I tried a few times. I just couldn't get it to work. I wasn't really sure what the problem was, but it is what it is. So that was gaming on Linux. Again, I wanted to say thanks to AFS Smokes for the inspiration of the idea, and Drinking Ninja for the inspiration on the game, and for helping me with some of the content on the game. He was able to power level me a bit. So I'm going to play some more Diablo 3, but I thought this was neat. So we covered Pop! OS. It definitely worked better than Ubuntu for me. However, I'm sure after some fine tuning, Ubuntu probably would work well. And then we also got Discord running. So that together, I mean, really Linux, playing Diablo 3, using Discord on an APU, it actually worked really well. However, I do want to make a huge note here. Just like I was telling my buddy AFS Smokes, because he's interested in doing some stuff with Linux, I absolutely can't suggest doing this like as your main gaming computer or switching over to doing this. Like the amount of work that went into it, and then the things you just kind of have to deal with, such as not being able to tab out of Discord, the fine tuning at the beginning. I certainly couldn't recommend like going and doing this as opposed to just running this on Windows. However, if you're somebody who you're stuck on Linux, but you're kind of want to get into gaming or do some gaming, chances are you already know how to do this. I'm not showing you anything new. But if for whatever reason you want to get into Linux and I guess you don't have the ability to have multiple machines or operating systems, so maybe you do have to dump Windows and you want to try it, then this would be something to try. But just understand this is like, I did this for probably a few hours to learn how to do this. And then once I learned how to do it, I said, and I'm done with that. And the hard drive's pulled, the server's back up in the corner, and I will not be running Diablo 3 on Linux anymore. There was too many things that were just kind of things that I had to kind of get used to or tolerate, when on Windows I could just do it. But it was interesting to see that it could be done. And it really wasn't as hard as I expected. I expected this to be a crazy time-consuming thing of installing this and fine-tuning that. And Pop! OS, like I want to play more with Pop! OS because it just worked. And they have a ton of stuff in their shop for games. And it really, from my understanding, is it's really made for gamers, maybe developers too, or something like that. But like it was geared, I guess it's an operating system geared for gamers, and it seems to just work. So between Lutris and then Wine running, and then their own shop, like Pop! OS, it's got some stuff. So I will be coming back to Pop! OS, but I am not, my gaming setup that I'm looking at right now, I won't be changing that anytime soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you learned something, please let me know in the comments. If you come up with any ideas, please let me know. You can also jump over to our Discord. It's discord.medicx21.com. I'm super interested to know what you guys are thinking or want or ideas or something like that. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribing helps so you know when my next one comes out. And till then, I'll see you guys next week.